everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Night. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff, what number episode is this?
This, we should really have some like firework graphics, something going over our screen, because this is our 100th episode.
Really?
Yes. We began way back in the before times.
Before times?
In May of 2018.
Really? Wow.
Yes. And I have enjoyed our time together. I think it has given us a great excuse to hang out and have the kind of conversations that you and I both like to have.
Yes, I agree.
So it has been time well spent as far as I'm concerned.
I think so as well. It'd be so nice if other people shared it with us.
Well, maybe we'll have to be discovered, after our working time. Like a lot of great minds and great artists discovered after their time.
And may I say also, that's quite an attractive shirt you're wearing.
Why, thank you. Yours as well.
Thank you.
We're very much of a feather this evening.
Very much. Very much.
There's good reason for that.
I have to wait a minute. There we go. That's better. Okay.
Right, I'll show off the back.
Yeah. Oh, and what is that on the back? What is that?
Those are our list, our special list of the Baker's Dozen of Virtues that we decided would be the basis for all of our talks that we've had over these years.
Yeah, which was like our first 15, 20 episodes or something.
Yeah.
Came up with the list.
It took us a little while to get through them, but we did finally. We narrowed it. I want to say narrowed it down, but we actually kind of expanded from like the seven.
Yes.
Seven virtues.
Well, there's so many, as we said then, there's so many lists.
Yes.
The list of virtues that we had to make our own, and that's in keeping with tradition to make our own list. So
right, and it saves everybody a bunch of time having to go through all those other lists, and then
exactly.
Which is the consolidated and approved list by us.
By us. And there was something special we were going to announce also.
Yes.
Our centenary 100th episode.
100th episode. We were going to just do a quick review of these since we refer to them constantly, but we haven't really talked about the virtues in all of this time as individuals.
And since it's the 100th episode, we can announce that the United States is joining the metric system.
if only.
Yeah. So no, that's not going to happen. But we have something else to announce.
Yes, we had put out there that we were soliciting topics from our vast numbers of viewers, and that we were going to do a drawing from all of the submissions we got. We were going to do a random drawing as fair as we could possibly make it to pick one person to receive one of these fancy custom shirts of ours.
The question though, how do we randomize numbers? There's a lot of that has been written. We could consult our friends who are mathematicians about how to randomize numbers, particularly in this case, because we are attempting to randomize a number of what was the number of suggestions again?
Well, in our elaborate scheme to narrow the question down to a single submission.
Yes,
we had an elaborate scheme. We were going to do electronic wheels, and we thought about having some kind of a counter that tumbled dice and everything. But we were saved from all that by having one single submission for topics. Now, in fairness, the one person who submitted 3.
Yeah, that's true.
so that was, I mean, that's great, and we may in some future time use all three up. I don't know, but so we were spared having to select from hundreds of submissions because
I'm disappointed because I had actually worked out an elaborate scheme using um, a prime number of lava lamps with electronic eyes that would count the number of bubbles and then select. It was going to be beautiful, and now I've got all these lava lamps.
well, I hear they're becoming popular again, so maybe maybe we can give those away, and I
Yeah,
don't know
there
if
we
we're
go.
going to get 100 more submissions, but if we had 100 viewers, I'd say let's give them all a lamp, but we don't have that either.
Well, the winner, by virtue of no other
By
entries,
virtue of participating.
is our friend Toby, who
Yes.
suggested three really interesting topics. So congratulations, and we will contact you to see what T-shirt you would
Yeah.
like. And
Color and size are
yeah,
going to be left up to you. So we'll get in touch and find that out.
and
Thanks for the
congratulations.
submission.
Yeah,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
They're good ideas too.
Yeah.
So there's something else important we need to understand before we begin.
And what is that?
What, pray tell, do you have as a libation this evening?
Well, I've gone we have 3 bottles of bourbon in our cabinet right now, unopened. And I was stuck. I was paralyzed about which bottle I should open.
Oh,
So I went for a more of a mule type of thing with some dark rum and some Fever Tree ginger ale and a bit of lemon bitters.
yeah. Okay.
And you, sir, what?
I
Put a
have
bet on wine.
no
No. Oh,
Johnny Walker Blue.
oh my.
Johnny Walker Blue. This is from a bottle my lovely and brilliant wife gave me some time ago. Which I'm nearing the end of, and closer to it with this generous pour. Um, it's a blended scotch, but it has all the attributes that I think of in a scotch, but all very subtle and perfectly balanced. It's really quite lovely. And I'm drinking it in a Norlin glass, which is, you can see,
Yep.
a double walled glass. And that actually the inside has that classic um,
Tulip shape.
tulip shape. It's actually, it does, I've done testing, blind testing between different types of glasses. This really does enhance the flavor of
I've
what I,
noted that I've noted that a tulip shaped glass does make a difference. I think like a snifter, it
yes.
tends to
Yeah.
hold the aromatic in there, but I'm not sure what the double wall does except insulate your fingers from the.
I'm not sure either, but damn if it doesn't work. So here's to
That's
you. And there we go. Oh, that's very nice. Um, so
So here we are once again confronted with the virtues.
yes. Back where we began improvising
Yeah. Yes.
from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, one of my favorite plays.
Yes.
Um, and the first one on our list is Honesty.
And we put this list together in no particular order of.
No, that's true.
Um,
We've actually talked about what we think the the first or the beginning virtues are, and it's
yeah.
hard to say because honesty and courage, I think, go hand in hand because you have to be brave enough to be honest with yourself about yourself, but if you don't have honesty to understand, anyway,
Right. We have in the past found sort of some of these to be sort of um, elemental sort of virtues that
yes,
feed,
yes,
that bolster and feed into the others.
yes.
Honesty and courage are the two that seem to come up most often.
And I think that um particularly now and over the past 6 years, the the importance of honesty, intellectual honesty, emotional honesty. Honesty is not just truth telling, but it is it's truth on a lot of different levels. There's intellectual truth, emotional truth. There could be spiritual truth too. There's what is true, but what's internally true, what you perceive as true, and what you can prove factually as true, um, objectively rather than subjective truth.
Right.
Um, it's a it's it can be quite complicated, and I think that I see so often now people saying, and I think we talked about this when we talked about this initially. Stephen Colbert in the first episode of his old show, The Colbert Report, where he was playing a fictional version of himself.
As an ultra conservative.
Yes, he coined the word truthiness.
Mm-hmm.
It feels true, therefore it's true.
Or at least it feels true, so therefore I can feel good about adopting it
Right.
as a
And
premise.
I see so many people now, and across the political spectrum, doesn't from all ends, beliefs, um, philosophies. I see people demonstrating that, the reality of that, where they say, well, this is how I feel, and they've made a belief out of, or a primary virtue out of conformity, even conformity to some kind of nonconformity, where, well, this is what everybody says, so this must be true, where people are getting their news from social media.
Right, sure.
That's the
Well,
main. I've asked students that. Who reads a newspaper? Nobody. Where do you get your news? Well, TikTok and
oh, geez.
Instagram and
Well,
Twitter and, well, X, or
there's
whatever
always
the
been,
fuck
I
they're calling
mean,
it.
there's always been kind of a irony, kind of a silliness to the let's all be individualistic rebels together.
In the same way, yeah.
Yeah, let's show our individuality by all dressing alike.
Yes.
You know,
I think the honesty, and we've said this before with some of the virtues, uh, they are not simply nouns, they are verbs. Honesty
yes,
is an action. It is what you do. All the virtues are actions. They're not necessary. People think of virtues as qualities you possess. No, they
right.
are actions that you do. So honesty is a practice, and honesty requires diligence, requires perseverance, requires a search for facts, for the truth, for what's verifiable, what's proven. And people who accept merely what's being told to them without questioning it are not only not exemplifying or practicing the virtue of honesty by merely accepting without questioning what they're being told, they're
Well,
actually being duped.
And I think it is why, I think that in particular is why we eschewed a common virtue in these lists is faith.
Yeah.
And in my mind, faith is exactly what you're talking about. You
Yeah.
are you, and I think what we might have to do is we might do one of our next upcoming episodes on indoctrination and
Yes.
honesty.
Yeah.
But so we left faith off of our list
Yes.
on purpose because one can have faith, one can have hope, one can have trust. These are all things that we like to see, but they can lead you away from the virtue of honesty.
Well, faith is explicitly believing in that which cannot be proven.
Right, without evidence.
Yes.
So, we've we've had similar discussions about. I believe that counting your, and we've as a country, even we have been told for generations that you can't attack someone's beliefs, that their beliefs are sacrosanct somehow, that their faith is virtuous, is inherently virtuous to have faith. And I simply don't believe that. I think if you can be convinced by someone to, well, somebody else said it. If you can be, who was it? There's a quote. Those who can be made to believe the absurd can be made to do or can commit atrocities, something like
Yes.
that.
Something like that.
You're made to believe in absurdity, you can be made to commit an atrocity.
Yes. So I think the challenge here, and it maybe seems like a fine line or a splitting of hairs, but I don't think it is. I think it's very clear. I accept and will defend the right of any person to believe anything that they want, but that doesn't mean I respect what they choose to believe.
Correct. Yes.
So
Right.
people can believe they're flat earthers.
Yeah.
They can believe that. I think that's foolish.
And yeah, you can believe that, but we're not going to leave you alone with sharp objects.
No, I'm not going
Right?
to I'm not going to respect the fact that you believe it.
Yeah.
I will defend your right to be an idiot.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm not saying that all religious faith is idiotic, because it can actually motivate people to do good things. But
Right.
someone asked the question, and I've seen this actually in a number of situations, a number of iterations and depictions, where someone said, well, I don't remember who it was, but they said, well, you're an atheist. Why aren't you raping and murdering as much as you want? And the response was, I am. And the amount I want to do it is zero.
That was Penn Jillette.
Penn Jillette did that. I think I've seen it several other places as well.
Ricky Gervais does
That's right.
something similar.
But I think that, and we
Richard
talked about this before, human beings evolved to be social creatures because it is in societies, in groups of people, that humans increase their likelihood of survival.
Right. We're pack animals.
Yes. And in in order to coexist in those situations, they evolved ethics. And ethics are the rules by which we coexist with each other.
Well, I think
I define ethics in that way, and morality as individual, private decisions. But however you want to define them, that evolved with people because it's a survival trait.
Well, I think, and I go back a little, I back up a little bit and say empathy. We developed empathy which
Yes.
is what helped us act as a social organism,
Yes, we did.
right?
Yes.
And that empathy is expressed in almost every major religion as a golden rule of some sort.
Yes.
Every large organized religion has its version of don't do unto others, that what you would not have done to yourself.
Yes.
That tenet is in all of them, and it's because it grows out of the natural empathy
Yes.
that we
That
have as humans.
that when asked to explain the whole of the law, one of the shame on me, I've forgotten who it was. One of the sages said, "That which is hateful to you, do not do to another person."
Right.
That is the whole of the law. The rest is commentary.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So I think if that all you need is empathy, really, to act morally. You don't some
Well,
people
and
who
that's why people who are without empathy are sociopaths.
sure. So what we're saying here is that, well, I wouldn't be able to, keep myself from raping and murdering all over the place because I don't have any empathy. I need some sort of overlooking power that keeps me from doing all those things because I'm not naturally empathetic. So that's where that argument to me
Yeah.
ultimately goes is,
The threat of hell.
yeah,
Yeah.
or it's the carrot or stick, right? You got to
Yeah.
have both. You can go to heaven or you can go to hell. And if you don't do all these things and keep these rules, you'll go to hell. If you do, however, if you do keep all the rules and you act just exactly the way we tell you to, you'll go to heaven. You'll
Yeah.
get this eternal reward. And
So we,
so empathy isn't required in that situation. It's
yeah,
just personal reward or punishment.
I think we have moved away from, and again,
Yes,
there
we
are
have.
people of faith who have used their faith to inspire them to do good works. I think they would have done so without them. I think of Jimmy Carter and his late wife, Rosalind Carter, and the phenomenal good they did as an act of faith. We talk about an act of faith. They did that because they believed that it was required of them. And I think that's completely admirable. So that I don't think that should be left unsaid. But um, honesty, and we talked about that, and then why faith is
Mm-hmm.
not on the list because it traditionally was. Um, and I think we should talk about courage.
Absolutely.
Um, it takes courage to speak the truth, to say the truth to yourself about yourself. It takes courage to speak the truth to other people, but it also takes strength to do so courteously and empathy to do so in a way that where you are speaking the truth to someone else to help them, not to merely hurt them, because you can hurt with words and you can help and heal with words. So,
Sometimes defending requires hurting, unfortunately.
yes.
And
Um, well, we've also talked about self-defense and the the ethics of self-defense, um, which are can require inflicting pain, but it's not the goal. It's the it's it's the byproduct of stopping the of being defensive. But if you're talking about causing hurt, as in causing speaking truth to someone will cause them to feel pain because they haven't faced that before. Yeah, that certainly
yeah,
can be true. But if you do it with empathy, you
Right.
can minimize that. So,
And generosity is our next on our list. And um, that also, what we're just talking about, um, trying to help someone, being empathetic is an act of generosity.
yes,
If you're telling someone the truth because you think it will help them, is in some ways an act of generosity.
yes.
Um,
In Hebrew, the word for charity is derived from the same root word as righteousness. It's considered simply part of being a good person that
okay.
you help other people. Um, Generosity, I think and that doesn't simply mean monetary gifts. I think being generous with our time, which has often been said as the most precious commodity, I think is 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 often one of the things that's most needed and most appreciated.
Well, and there's a sort of generosity of spirit of being generous in your estimations of people, uh, all that too.
It's better to assume incompetence than malice.
Right. Well, I think it's don't assume malice when mere incompetence will
Yes,
exploit the
yes,
situation.
yes. Well, you're being generous with your words. I was being
Honest. So, yeah, and we talked about that a lot too, generosity and what forms it can take. So
yes.
always worth repeating.
And I think you should expound broadly on the quality that you so excel at, and that's humility.
Oh, why, thank you. I hadn't realized you'd noticed. I must be doing it really well for you to take notes. So I
Yeah,
am. I have I have a T-shirt that says "All-Time Grand Champion Hall of Fame Humility."
yeah. I think that again, and we've come back to this a number of times. People confuse humility with false modesty,
Yeah.
and I actually recently posted something about the Dunning Kruger,
Hmm.
the graph of that Dunning Kruger. When somebody knows very little, they overestimate how much they know.
Right.
And then they realize if they continue that what they don't know. And then as they are on the uprise and they understand how much they do know, they realize how much a lot more there is to know. And that's humility, is understanding honestly, I'm back to honesty, understanding honestly how much you know and can do and how much more there is to know. Because the more you know, the more you have a picture of how vast
Right. Sure.
the scope of accomplishment and knowledge is.
Learning something is like opening a window into all of the knowledge that exists. Right. You learn something and you open up this little window and you can look through. And the bigger the window gets, the more you can see on the other side and how vast it is.
Yes.
So yeah. Um,
Instead of half vast.
yes, correct. The last meme that I posted was who was it? Um, I don't remember who it was. The quote was, but maybe it was C.S. Lewis. It was
I
true humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less.
well,
So I remember the quote, although I seem to have forgotten its attribution. Let me just look that up real quick here. Oh, Soren Kierkegaard, excuse me. No, that's not the right one. It was C.S. Lewis. True humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. That was 2 memes ago. Last meme this last weekend was Soren Kierkegaard.
Uh,
I quoted him a couple times. I don't believe everything he has to say, but every once in a while, I do like to, when we're doing those memes, I do like to pick something from a person who I don't always agree with, someone whose philosophies aren't 100% congruent with mine, but that we overlap in this thing. So I appreciate that.
well, they used to say even a broken clock is right twice a day,
right.
but that's no longer true if the clock is digital. So, yeah.
So from humility, we go to courtesy.
The fuck you say?
The fuck I do.
Well, I was actually teaching a class once about courtesy, and I started the class with, "Well, it's about time you guys showed up. Sit down, shut up." And they didn't get it. This is a class about courtesy. They didn't get it. It was, I said, I'm joking. I'm joking. It was a joke to start off the
they
class
thought they were in
with some levity.
Chandler's sarcasm class.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've talked a lot about how the courtesy is not what a lot of people think it is. It is not just politeness and being nice.
No.
It is courtesy.
Courtesy has specific rules. And again, it's socially evolved so that people can interact with each other in a group setting. Right. And the rules and courtesy became codified in rules of etiquette in certain classes of society, but it's really being it's being respectful.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, that's, if I had to summarize it, I've written about rules for, how to be courteous and what you do, and you use proper forms of address, and you don't interrupt, and you don't raise your voice, and you don't use insults, and you don't, it's a bunch of things. You can say to somebody that you disagree with them and you don't think that they understand and they haven't proven their case, or you don't, you're missing some evidence or something. You can criticize what they're saying, and you can do so courteously. Mm-hmm. And I think courtesy is also a form of self-control.
Well, yeah, it certainly puts a limit on your behaviors.
Yes. It's also a form of control, not just self-control, but control of the conversation. There are so many conversations about challenging issues in public, in the media, in where people disagree with each other. And the last thing that I see is I see no courtesy. I see people shouting at each other, shouting over each other, not presenting evidence, and I see either a lack of moderation, no moderator for the conversation, no individual self-moderation, and no person moderating, which can be useful. Or if there is a moderator, they've abrogated that responsibility and they're letting the shouting match go on because it makes for ratings.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, well, and courtesy is also different or separate from tact, which has its place also.
Yes.
Tact is taking sort of courtesy to sort of the next strategic level.
Well, and it's also empathetic.
Courtesy or tact?
Tact.
Well, I think if you're trying to be truly courteous, you sort of fall into tact.
Yeah.
You can be tactful without being truly courteous, I think, because the tact can be tactical, can be strategic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so I and there's another quote that like tact is the art of making a point without making an enemy, I think.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Um, I like that one better than the tact is telling someone to go to hell in such a way that they feel like they'll enjoy the trip.
I happen to be married to someone who is able to do that
Yeah,
uh, very well. And
but
I've been accused of accomplishing that myself. Uh,
I but I do like the idea that tact is the ability to make a point without making an enemy, where
yeah.
you can make your case in such a way that the person doesn't feel attacked as an individual
Yes.
and can therefore take in what you're saying. Because that's where communication ends, when someone becomes defensive.
Yes. I
And that's when you see
remember.
what you were saying earlier, is that people are yelling at each other in defense of themselves.
Yeah.
They're no longer trying to make a point. They're no longer trying to convince someone. They're defending their position.
Many, many, many years ago, I was having a discussion or as a brainstorm or something, and somebody said something, and this was not, maybe it wasn't, no, I don't think it was a brainstorm because there's no criticism in that. Some discussion, and I said, nah, it's a stupid idea because so and so and so, and gave my reasons. And then the other person spoke and said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything after you called me stupid. And I realized, oh, I'm really sorry. I wasn't calling them stupid. My intention was not to call them stupid, but to criticize the idea. But as
Sure.
soon as I said that, that they heard that they were stupid and they heard nothing else. So I learned then not to do it that way. I took that lesson. It's like, here, I see what you're doing. Let me rephrase, let me see if I understand. Here's what I think you're doing. Okay, I have questions about it. How does it do this? What about this? And so on. And I found that asking questions tends to keep the conversation going rather than cutting it off. So,
Right. Yeah. And we've known each other for a long time, and you know that I've got a pretty thick skin when it comes to discussions
yeah,
and stuff. And I don't tend to take things personally immediately. And it was one of my struggles of maturation, was realizing how quickly other people do, and
yeah,
having to
yeah,
account for that in conversations, because I didn't I told this story before. A mutual friend of ours and I were just sitting in our living room talking about something that we both had opinions on, and I just was expressing my opinion, and here's my experience of it, and this and that. And the person I was talking to was, I realized at some point, was getting really angry. Whereas this is just a discussion about something I happen to know something about, and I don't care necessarily that you agree with me, but but it, at some point he had begun to take all of this discussion personally.
yeah,
Somehow this meant way more to him than it did to me, and we were fighting. I didn't even suddenly I found myself in this position of, oh wait, whoa, I don't we don't have to go there. This None of this means as much to me, means enough to me to make you angry about it. This was not my intention, and that was a thing, and I still struggle with it. It's something I have to keep remembering, that okay, this apparently, well, I have to realize that people tend to build their identities around their beliefs,
yeah.
and when you attack their beliefs, you attack their identity, and that's tough for people.
I re I remember years ago, my mother saying to me, my mother worked as a sales clerk in a department store for a long time. As first, it was interesting because first in the bridal department, then in the um, bridal department, maternity department, and infants department in that order. So she saw some of the same people for
Right.
years. And the term bridezilla had not been coined yet, but she dealt with a lot of those people. Um, and she said, at some point, she said, the meaner they are, the nicer I am to them. And then she leaned in and said, and they really hate that. um, and yeah, it's when somebody, the angrier somebody is, the quieter, the more polite, the gentler you are with them. It's not only control, self-control as we talk, it's also tactical. It
Right.
does. It really does. But um we should move on, I think.
Okay. Well, and right here is propriety
Yes.
and being acting appropriately.
It's so hard to teach propriety.
Well, it
It's
requires someone to have humility
yeah.
to act appropriately.
Well, and appropriateness is situational.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. It takes humility to sometimes realize that you are out of your element.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
well, and some people will react to that discomfort by being belligerent
Yeah.
or by asserting I don't have to do that. I'm my own person and I don't have to follow your rules and blah, blah. And it means that you're a child is what that means.
Yeah.
Is
I
you
don't
can't
wear
control
a
yourself.
necktie. I don't wear a monkey suit. I don't wear, well, it's appropriate for the situation. Well, I don't do that.
Right.
Okay. Get over yourself.
Yeah.
Situation.
What makes you think you're that special?
Right. Right. And I think sometimes that's actually that belligerence is to cover embarrassment
Oh,
about
absolutely.
about ignorance of the situation, not knowing what to do. It's like,
Right.
hey, I'll help you. I'll show you how to tie a tie. I'll show you, I'll take you to get a suit, or something like that. Um,
Well,
if you wear a suit that fits properly, it's actually comfortable. It's
sure.
not. I've seen so many people. I remember we were out at dinner years ago at a place that I hadn't realized was popular with the prom crowd.
Oh,
And
okay.
so there was another table, and it was a bunch of high school kids all in their formal wear, um, and all the young men looked so uncomfortable in their ill-fitting suits
The
and
rentals,
ties, and they're just, oh,
shirt's too big, and yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't know how many weddings I've been to where I have to do a groomsman check. Like,
yeah,
no, tuck your shirt in, pull your pants up, put your cummerbund where it's supposed to be, straighten, tighten up your tie, lay your, I mean, just it's kind of like, the 12-point inspection before they go out
right.
on stage kind of a thing. Um, and okay, you're not experienced with it. Fine. That's nothing to be embarrassed
Then,
about.
then honestly admit with humility you don't know what you're doing and let people help you. Asking for help is a really powerful thing.
Right. But if somebody's ego is so much in their way that they can't say, I have no idea what I'm doing here. Help
Right.
me out. Just, look me over, give me a nod and I'll feel fine. This is something we've encountered before, at least I have, in our Society for Creative Anachronism lives, where you want to bring like a family member to a special event, right?
Mhm.
And they're not comfortable wearing borrowed. Everybody has to wear some kind of a thing, some kind of
Attempt at
attempted
medieval
garb,
clothing.
and it is a very low bar, right? As we
Yes.
but mostly the female family members are like, cool, I get to wear this amazing dress. Fine, I'm
My
great.
my mother came to my first coronation and she made her own garb.
See, that's fantastic, right? But
And then she watched the combat sport, the fighting, and I wasn't participating in that at
you
the
have too
time.
much to do
Then
that.
she watched that and she looked at me and she said, "You do this?" I said, "Yes, that's how I got
That's
it."
why I'm here.
She said, "I'm glad I didn't see it. I'm glad I didn't watch." So that was,
Right,
you know,
right.
but
But
can I
but
still, I don't have to call you king, do I? No, no, mom.
the,
So
no, mom, that would be a little too far. But I found that male family members have a harder time, putting on a tunic or, it's like, oh, God forbid tights, right? Or
not
hose of any
wearing not wearing jeans, they throw on a
right. You
tunic
throw a
over it.
t-shirt, you throw a t-tunic over their turtleneck and slacks and belt it up, and that's you know,
Right.
Uncle Joe. That's fine. That's enough. Um, but or when they, however, when they refuse outright to do anything, then they're more uncomfortable
Yes.
because everybody's looking at them,
Right.
and they think if I wear this crazy outfit, everybody's going to stare at me. No, it's quite the opposite. In fact, everybody's wearing some silly outfit. You wear a silly outfit too, and you'll blend in, and you won't have to be embarrassed.
Right. That's also true in places where a lack of clothing is required.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I have I have little experience, just only a little. Um,
I
where it's
probably have more than you do with that.
probably,
But
but I mean, we also grew up in an age where you got out of gym class and you went to shower with all those dudes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it was just a thing. You just did it, and you got dressed, and you went to class, and that was it. And you just kind of
Don't they do that now?
I don't know. I don't think you're required anymore to take a shower after gym.
Oh, ugh.
I know, right?
Ugh.
I mean, male teenagers in particular, are not particularly pleasant to be around at the best of times, let alone.
Um, yeah, talk about propriety.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
well, propriety is not just how you dress,
right,
but
it's acting and
how you behave. You know,
yes,
inside voice versus outside voice, but outside voice is appropriate outside.
right,
And there's it's so complex, but those are the rules of society. And if you moved to a completely different society somewhere, the rules would be different.
right, right. And particularly in America, we have this again. It's this sort of uh, uh, knee-jerk reaction to anything that smells of conformity. And this is I will not conform. Okay, so go stand outside somewhere where you're not bothering anyone.
And then
Go,
and conform to the behaviors of all the other so-called nonconformists.
right,
That
right.
yeah,
If if you don't want to come here and be part of this thing, go away. Is
yeah.
my usually my response. Like, you don't. This is we've talked about this too about clothing again. That when we both worked in men's retail clothing, and I convincing guys who have never worn anything but jeans and flannel shirts to wear a suit is that most of those guys I've approached them with a hunting metaphor. It's
Mhm.
like you wouldn't wear what you're wearing now if you were going hunting, would you? Well, no, I'd wear camel or camouflage. Exactly. That's
Yes.
that's what we're talking about here. This suit, this tie, is protective coloration. That's all it is. You've got to go with that mindset. It's about blending in, fitting in, and achieving your goal.
Yes. And I went the other direction of using James Bond as an analogy.
Okay.
Said, look how comfortable he looks. He looks like he was born in a tuxedo.
Right.
There's a reason he's wearing it. It's not wearing him. How does that happen? It fits properly.
Right.
Let's talk about what fit in the, to go into that and style and that sort of thing. But um, but again, it's not just about what you wear. It's about propriety is a really challenging topic. We talked about it at length in an earlier episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Moderation,
Moderation.
I'll drink to that.
All things in moderation, including moderation. Right.
Well, I think that having thought about it a lot, I would actually substitute another word for the virtue of moderation. I would
Okay.
say balance
All
rather than
right.
moderation. I'd say
Sure.
balance because that's how I think of it. That's what you want to achieve. That's what I want to achieve. Balance between all the aspects of life. I know people talked about once upon a time talked about work-life balance. And what they were talking about was when employers talked about work-life balance, they were talking about you work for us as long as we want you to, and then you go try to have a life.
Right.
When we don't need you, um, you're on call all the time. And I remember when I was in grad school, I was the penultimate class of the program was called Ethics, Regulation, and Society. And I had probably 20, 25 years more professional work experience than the rest of the students in my cohort.
Ah,
And the question was, and this was many years ago, is it ethical to use the business phone for personal calls during work? And they all, no, no, no. I said, well, wait a second. If the business requires you to take calls and emails when it's not during business hours, then you can make personal calls and do personal emails during business hours. This is not, we're not talking work-life separation or work-life balance. We're talking work-life integration. Because if you can, and the smart businesses have understood, if you can take care of small parts, little things during the day that are personal, you're have that off your mind, off your plate. You're going to do your work. You're going to do it better and spend more time there, probably. And that's why so many businesses, big corporations have. There's a dry cleaner and a daycare and a gym and all sorts of things on site.
well, I think that's not. Yeah, that is an attempt to minimize the time you have to spend on your personal life. We're going to make it convenient for you to take care of your personal things in the shortest possible time so that we can get the most production out of you.
Right. So,
And I mean, it's clever, but it's ultimately self-serving. They're not doing
it is self-serving, but it's also can be a way to, again, balance rather than moderation is what I'm thinking. Moderation is often thought of as self-deprivation. And I
Oh,
don't think of it as that way. I think of it as achieving balance, balance between the different aspects of your life, the mind, body, spirit, all of that sort of thing, achieving balance. How do you do that? A certain amount of moderation, I think.
yeah, and that's where I was going to go. I think to kind of wrap that up is that I'm not sure I'm comfortable substituting one for the other, but certainly moderation is necessary and can lead you to balance.
And I think balance can lead you to is a component of moderation. So yeah.
All right. All right. So the next on our list is justice. And
Yes.
that's another kind of a tough one to talk about, but it's a lot of people think it's very clear, very cut and dried, very black and white. Um,
It's yeah. Um,
Certainly, some situations can be viewed. I think this one scale of the justice balance bangs hard on the table, and the other one does not. That
I
occasionally
like the
happens.
sound effect you added when you leaned over it too. That was good. Um, yeah, I think, and the reason I made a sound when justice came up is that it's, and we've talked about extensively about the difference between justice and vengeance.
Yeah.
And that justice is that the perpetrators receive the penalty, whereas in vengeance, it's more emotional. Less it's less
Focused.
focused, less considered, less unemotional, less logical. It's but it's so challenging now when you see the the injustice where perpetrators with means can get away with things. As they say, the wheels of justice move slowly. No, the wheels of the legal system move slowly, and the legal system is meant to facilitate justice, but that doesn't always happen either. So
Well,
I'm
we've also talked about how, in my view, anyway, and I will make this, I will posit this theory that vengeance had a place when there wasn't a central system of laws and government. That the threat of vengeance it was a deterrent, and it was held up as a way to keep the peace, because if you do me wrong, by the way, I'm going to mess with your whole family. I'm going to
yeah,
burn your house to the ground, kill your children to 3 generations or whatever. So it was became a duty to take vengeance, because there was no other way to exact justice and no other way to keep or to maintain the safety of your tribe or your family or whatever, is that if you attack me, I'm going to attack you triple,
right.
quintuple fold. So don't do it, right? Because I am bound to take my vengeance if you harm my family. And as long as everybody has the same attitude towards each other, that as long as you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, then things kind of balance out. Except, like you say, it
Yeah,
has always been, if you have the means to
yeah,
ignore that or to
yeah.
overcome that vengeance, then you can do harm.
I think that justice also ties back into honesty because there it requires factual honesty and integrity in what are the facts to
Okay.
for justice to occur. Um, have you seen Equalizer 3?
Yes.
I thought it was a good conclusion to the series. I like the fight choreography. I like the emotional ending to it, and I really like that little town in Italy. Uh, the fictional name, but the town was pretty. But it's an example of um, absolutely harsh exacting punishment
Yeah.
that he committed, but it was just. And it was only at the people who were the perpetrators of the injustice.
Yes. Well, and that's kind of, and he,
And it was in defense of other people.
right. And in those movies, um, he's also usually gives somebody an option.
He does. Yes.
Here's your out. Here's the way out. This is what is going to happen unless here you
Yes.
can decide for yourself what's going to happen next.
Yes. And that's why it made me think of it, because of that, because of what you were saying about this is the deterrent.
Hmm.
And if that system is no longer there, or the people with means think they don't have to abide by that, then it won't be that, justice. That's why extrajudicial, extra legal judicial actors like Batman and the Equalizer and so are um so popular in because
Right.
people see the injustice of the wealthy, you know, and
Well,
yet, and
and
yet,
not,
well, and not just the wealthy, because I mean, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark and
Oliver
Oliver
Queen.
Queen and, you know,
Yeah,
and yet,
sure.
and yet,
Well, that their wealth is a plot device in some ways that allows them to have all these things that make them powerful.
yes,
Okay.
and somebody posted, um, with all their wealth, why are today's billionaires going into space? Why hasn't any one of them become Batman?
Yeah, right. Right. We've created so many billionaires. You'd think that just by sheer odds, one of
One
them
of them
would
would be
become a
Batman.
masked crime fighter.
Exactly.
Well, and this is also a kind of the kind of rough justice vigilante law is a very much an American thing too.
Yeah. Um,
I mean, other
there,
cultures have it. I think India actually has a very vibrant culture in vigilante.
oh yeah, there are places with honor killings that's not justice, that's horrible. So,
Well, it's because they haven't, in culture aided opinion here, they haven't broken out of the traditions that required it are no
right,
longer required,
right.
right? So, we all as Americans, right? We all want to believe that we could, if we needed to, we could take up arms and wrest justice from the powerful at some point. When it gets bad enough, we'll, we'll we'll get our guns and we'll go get them.
Yeah.
Whatever. Um, it's a fantasy that we have held on to.
Yes.
Um, I mean, yeah. So
Um, I think that the thing I was going to say, I don't remember. So, yeah.
well, then let us move on then to fortitude, which is
Yes.
in some ways a strength of character. Oh, wait a minute, we skipped prowess
Oh, we did. We
way
did.
back.
Way
But
back.
we have come to find that prowess is really not one of the most important virtues in the end.
Prowess is a result. Prowess is a practice.
Yes.
Prowess, excellence in what you do, is the result of patience and perseverance and or fortitude, which is another way of saying it, and honesty and humility. All of those things are required to achieve prowess, to achieve
Right.
excellence in anything.
Diligence.
Diligence, perseverance, fortitude, that goes by a number of names, and they all have various,
Yeah.
shades of meaning. You have to be brave enough to face the honestly your own ability level, and then persevere with fortitude to endeavor to improve, to achieve prowess, and you can.
So
Um,
I think that's what we eventually came to, is that prowess isn't it's more about the pursuit of pursuit of excellence in a chosen endeavor,
yes,
is what
yes,
we decided we meant by prowess.
yes,
And yes, all those things you mentioned, all of those things have added up to that. That pursuit requires all these things, and therefore having achieved it equals some kind of
yeah.
virtue.
It's a result. We talked about fundamental or elemental component virtues that together equal a
Yeah.
combination of other virtues. And I think prowess is although we think of that as fundamental in some ways, that actually is a result of the other virtues working in combination.
But it's the yes,
The application of those other
yes, it
virtues.
is the
Yeah.
conscious application to do it
Yes. Yeah.
that yields prowess that we find virtuous.
Yes. So
Okay.
fortitude, that relates to fortitude because you have to stick with it, stick to itiveness, as
Yeah.
let's say, and that, um,
Well, and we talked about fortitude actually being that, and to do something to push through something that is
yes,
difficult or painful as well. Not just pursuing something diligently, but when it becomes hard, when it's painful,
yes,
when when you really don't want to do it, but recognize that it is necessary, you make yourself do it.
I remember, I don't think I ever told you this before. It's a moment that was an important moment for me when I made that decision. Um, it was, I don't know, elementary school, and we were outside in gym class playing softball. We didn't have gloves, so we're just catching things barehanded. And I was out in the field, and the ball was hit to me, and I knew it was going to hurt because I had really soft, I still have really soft hands.
You've got oddest hands.
I do. And I knew it was going to hurt. And I remember deciding at that moment, I don't care how much it hurts. I am going to catch this and not drop it. And I did. And I that was a really important decision
Sure.
as a kid to make. And I have said there've been other times, even just recently, where somebody said, "Well, are you okay? Does that hurt?" I said, "I don't care if it hurts.
Hmm.
No, I don't care if it hurts.
It won't
I'm
hurt
going to
forever.
do this thing. I don't care if it hurts. I'm going to do this." And people give you an odd look when you say, "I don't care if it hurts." Uh,
Well, and I think that that is one of the values that sports in school and at a young age can endow young people with, is the ability to realize that, yeah, this will hurt, but it won't hurt forever. I can get through it. I can accomplish this thing. I can do it if I put up with a little bit of pain
yeah.
right now.
Well, you have to distinguish between different kinds of pain.
Well,
The pain
whatever,
that
sure.
won't last and the pain that it means injury. But yes, I agree.
Well, yeah, yeah, you shouldn't play sports that will cripple you, but
Yes,
yeah, you can endure a little pain. You can endure a little suffering now, and if you endure a little bit of suffering now, that suffering will seem less and less
yes.
the more you do it.
And I know I'm not alone in having this experience of going to the doctor and they say, well, on a pain scale,
Right.
it's like, well, before we get to the pain, if it's on the pain scale, I need to take something for it. Before we get to the pain scale, there's a discomfort scale. I'm
Right.
still on the discomfort scale. It's not actual pain yet. And
Right.
it's like, you know, so that,
Well, we talked about that as both of us have been doing a martial sport for most of our adult lives, if not all, and you just get bruises, you get hit, you get banged up,
yeah,
and you can't go to the doctor every single time. You just deal with it. And in a week or so,
Yeah.
back when we were in our 20s, in a week or so, it was fine. Right.
Well, and I took up another martial sport, or martial art this time, because it's
Right.
not taught as a sport, about 5 years ago. And I get bruised because I
Right.
seem to bruise more easily now.
Usually
And
you strain something or
I've broken toes, I've sprained my neck, I got a couple of cracked ribs from I got hurt more in this than I have in 40 years of armored combat sport. So
well, they don't let you wear armor in
no,
jujitsu.
but um, but you're bruised. Yeah, it's just bruises. I don't care.
Yeah,
I
bruises
don't care
heal.
if it bruises, whatever.
Well, that's what I was getting at is whenever I've gone to a doctor and they ask about pain, I'm here because I have found that, the scale is, it's a minor discomfort is a 1.
Yeah,
It's an ache. It bothers me, but I'm okay. And 10 is intolerable agony, right? Well, anything less than intolerable agony is tolerable. So I'm not sure where we are. I've been tolerating this. It's gotten to the point now where I have to come in and get something done. I suspect that most of your patients would have come in on a 4 on my scale.
yeah, yeah,
So let's let's not talk about the scale. It hurts enough for me to be here. Let's just go at that.
right. Because otherwise, if it didn't hurt enough for me to be here, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would just be
Um,
dealing with it, and
yes.
so.
So franchise.
Oh, this is always a fun one.
Yes. So I have a little bit different interpretation of franchise than a lot of people.
So
I
do I.
think franchise is the simultaneous duty to act and the ability to act. You have the word has become the franchise, meaning the vote. You have the opportunity to vote, therefore the obligation to vote. The franchise, that's how I interpret franchise. It's both a duty and an opportunity
Okay.
to take action for the positive good. You see something that can be done, you recognize that it can be done, that it would improve things, therefore you must do it. And that's what I see as franchise.
And I
And you have the ability to do it.
Right, that's what I was going to add. And
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
we're very similar in that I will take it. You say the opportunity and the ability. I put I sort of lump that into my my if I have any privilege, I must use that privilege
Yeah.
to do the right thing.
Yes.
So it's the same kind of thing. I have the ability and I have the means. It's so therefore, with great power comes great
Yeah. It's
responsibility.
related to noblesse oblige.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with a little power, you only have a little responsibility. But you
Yeah.
should. But franchise is you take that responsibility,
Yes.
even if it's
Exactly.
only a small thing. You are
You do it.
obliged to take that
You
step.
you do not look the other way
Right,
when you see something that, yeah.
and it's particularly because you have some power or authority in that situation, and that's often what franchise was used in period, I think, and what a lot of our current peers think of it as is the you must display your right to do a thing. And it's a tiny tweak, but it's an important difference. I don't think you need to display your rights.
Yeah, I think that again, it's like, are the clothes wearing you or are you wearing the clothes? If you have it, you don't need to shout it.
Right.
And if you shout it, you don't have it. So,
That's the way I think of wearing a coronet all the time in the SCA.
yeah.
I don't. They're uncomfortable for
Well, and I felt the same way, but I changed my mind about that because it was many years ago. It was after one of our events, and people were cleaning up, and so I was cleaning up. I was helping clean up. I was moving tables and sweeping and stuff, and I was wearing my cornet. I didn't even think about it because it's light and it's pretty comfortable. And somebody said to me later that that was important because it showed, it was an example that this is, once that's, the day is done, everybody pitches in, and you were doing that too. And so I thought that was, so I tend to wear it more often than not, just because um I actually, at this point, I put it on, I forget it's on, you know. So
I
but it,
I will put it on when that sort of rank and deference is important to what's happening at
yeah.
the moment. I'll wear it. Um, especially if it's a public thing where people are there's an audience and who is talking and why is that person talking and
Mhm.
as a symbol of your presence and why your presence is important. I'll wear it for that, for court
Well,
situations.
yeah, I have said that when being serving as a marshal, as safety official in
Yeah.
combat, the cornet, a symbol of rank, is my most important piece of marshaling equipment.
Right. Well, I mean, people recognize it as a symbol of authority,
Yeah, exactly.
experience, knowledge, and authority. So,
um, I have learned, I think anyone who teaches for any amount of time either learns how to establish that or doesn't, or quits teaching because you have to have, that in a classroom. You have to
oh,
have that certain amount of,
gravitas.
yeah, exactly. The, I was teaching a section on writing, and I was talking about how powerful words can be at evoking emotion, and it's not just about conveying information, it's about emotion. And I paused, and everybody got quiet. I paused because quiet can
Mhm.
get quiet. And I started, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Well, and I went on with this for
Mhm.
a while, and I stopped. And a student said, I heard a student say, "Oh, I got chills." Another student said, "Did you just make that up?"
You poor ignorant children.
No, no, no. Thank you. But that's Edgar Allan Poe. It's from a poem called The Raven. It's one of my favorite
It's one
poems.
of the most famous poems in history,
Yes.
in the English language, I should say.
And I said, but you see how powerful it can be. So anyway, okay. So
Loyalty,
loyalty.
and to me, this is in some ways mirrors faith in that you can have blind loyalty and that is does not serve anyone.
Yes.
Um,
Well, loyalty to, you can have loyalty to, well, blind loyalty to an individual, but that's cultism. You
yeah.
can have loyalty to principles and ideals. You can have loyalty to friends, but loyalty to friends, for example, can mean you speak honestly to them about problems, where you speak, that's an example of loyalty. It means you don't easily abandon friends or ideals or
Well, and it can also mean you are as good as your word.
exactly.
That's
Which
and
which is one definition I was given of honor. Because
okay.
people say, well, honor is be honor. Well, what does that mean? Honor means you're as good as your word. You say you will do something, you do it. You promise something, it will be kept. That's honor. So
Well, to
loyalty,
me,
I think,
honor goes beyond that a bit to here are my principles.
yes,
I will stick to those principles no matter what. That is what honor to
I'll
me
be
is.
loyal to those principles.
Yeah, but to me, I guess we can define loyalty that way. But it's being loyal in the sense that I will stand by you in adversity, but I will not shield you if you are wrong.
Um, there's a my country right or wrong. That's
Right.
often like so many quotations, only that part is said, but the full quotation is my country right or wrong. If right, to keep her right; if wrong, to set her right.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and I'm paraphrasing, I think, but is it so many quotations are truncated in ways that change their meaning. Um,
So I don't I do not believe in unconditional loyalty. There's loyalty is a I'm cleaving to you as a friend because I respect you and we hold similar principles. And as long as we are both loyal to those principles, I will stand by you in adversity. Right?
yes,
If you are under attack, or if you are having a difficult time, or if there's something that is weighing on you that I can help with, that's I will help with that. I can be that loyal. But when you punched out your wife and you're under arrest, I'm not going to bail you out. So just know that, Joe.
you
That
know, yeah, thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, it takes a lot for me to sort of cut off even Facebook friends who, are often just occasion acquaintances, but it takes a lot for me to end that. And I have ended more of those recently than in quite some time. Um, because and it is more about I think it is dishonesty, uninformed dishonesty, but a lack of pursuit of honesty. And anyway, I don't know, without getting into that too deeply, yes, um, I think
well,
we're
it's like I said, right? It's
yeah,
they have so strayed from your perceived principles.
yes,
You cannot you
yeah,
would be being disloyal to yourself if you
yes,
maintained a
yeah,
relationship. Yeah, and I think that's legit.
okay. And that brings us to sprezzatura.
Last but certainly not least.
No. And sprezzatura, which was, excuse me, the Medici held that as a virtue. And it is difficult to translate from the Italian. It's translated in a bunch of different ways, but essentially the air of perfect naturalness, in that you practice something so with such fortitude and such diligence to achieve a level of prowess that it seems effortless. And we've seen people do that. You see people in the arts, you see people in all sorts of things who do something so it seems effortless for them in a way that makes the countless hours of practice seem
Well,
unseen.
it is, they have practiced something so well, so diligently, as you say, that this skill looks as if they were born to do it, as if it's
Exactly.
so natural to
Exactly.
them that they don't have to practice. And yet,
Exactly.
truth is,
Yes. And I think it was Itzhak Perlman was asked why the great violinist was asked if he practices every day. He said yes. And they said, why? He
you're
said,
so
if I
good. You're
don't,
so good. Why do you need to practice?
yes. He said, if I don't practice for one day, I know it. If I don't practice for 2 days, the critics know it. If I don't practice for 3 days, the public knows it. He
Well, there,
could,
yeah,
but it is, I include that as a virtue because to me, all the virtues practiced diligently, all together, all at the same time, together can be worn like we were talking about wearing a suit of clothes rather than it wearing you, as if you were born in a tuxedo
right.
called sprezzatura. That is sprezzatura. That that's why I think it is the virtue that encompasses all of the virtues.
All right. And and I, because you feel this strongly about it, I'm not going to try and refute it. We don't share. We don't hold it in the same esteem, that
Okay.
particular thing.
Yeah.
Um, but that's okay. There's another sort of little anecdote, and I don't remember. I think it was a concert pianist. Um, Similar question was asked of, "You're so good. You're the top of your profession. How much do you practice?" And he said, like 4 hours a day, every day. Well, why do you need to practice so much? You're perfect. You're so good. Well, I think I'm starting to get pretty good.
Exactly.
And that's humility there, right?
Humility.
It's like
Yeah.
he knows how good, he knows enough to know how good somebody could be, and he's not that yet
Yeah.
in his own mind. He's not
There's
perfect. He knows every single
yeah.
mistake he's ever made.
There's a magician who could stand on a stage, Ricky Jay, I think was his name, stand on a stage with a deck of playing cards in a theater, and somebody could name the seat, the row and the seat number anywhere in the house, and he could toss a card and it would land there. Another one, land there. And somebody said, how long did it take you to master that? He said, 4 hours. 4 hours? Yes, 4 hours every day for 20 years.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I shared with the students at one point a video of um, monks creating a mandala, a sand mandala, Tibetan Buddhist monks creating a sand mandala. And it's just colored grains of sand applied through a little tube that's tapped to create. And it's these very intricate
Oh yeah.
patterns. Beautiful, beautiful. And this particular one was really large. They worked on it for a week or 2 weeks or something. And at the end, they have a ceremony and then they brush it.
Yeah. Sweep it
Or
away.
they destroy it, collect the sand, and then cast it onto moving water as a blessing to be carried throughout the world. And the students looked at me and went, what? They wrecked it? They destroyed, yeah, because it symbolizes the impermanence of life, and yet they
And for many of these orders, it's an act of meditation as
it
well.
is, it
The whole
is.
thing. It's every
Students,
part is meaningful to the monk.
yeah.
Well, and I
Well,
look at
and
that.
you and I have both known the experience of doing something in such a way that you forget about time, you lose track of time, you become what you are doing.
Yeah.
Mushin notion, the art of the mind of no mind. And that's part of that. And it's a great feeling when you accomplish that, when you achieve that state of mind, rather, not accomplish,
Right.
achieve.
And it's in some ways addictive. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
uh, we've also talked about that in terms of sports, in the
Yes. Yeah.
flow we talked
In
about.
the zone. Yeah.
Yeah. And how you're a lot of athletes are constantly chasing that.
Yes.
The great athletes have learned how to enter it more easily than others.
Yeah.
It's not like a switch you can turn on and off,
Yeah.
but they have they have mapped their neural pathways sufficiently that they can find it easier than most.
Yeah.
Lots of martial artists talk about that.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
well,
That's the list.
have we done it?
Yes.
I
I
think we
think we
have.
have.
So thanks everybody for
Thank,
coming for our 100th episode, a big milestone here. Like if you would, and share and follow and do all those things.
tell us what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, please. There was a T-shirt in it for one lucky viewer.
Yeah. And so until next time, be thou
A good night.
and true.